This is WLWT News 5, leading the way with breaking news.
And that breaking news, the U.S. has arrested Venezuela's president, Nicolas Maduro, after an intense military operation in the Latin American country overnight. Good evening and thanks for joining us at 6 o'clock. I'm Lindsay Stone. Now, we're now hearing that the plane carrying Maduro and his wife have landed in New York. President Donald Trump announcing that the U.S. would be running Venezuela for the time being. The operation comes after months of escalating tension in that region. Our White House correspondent Christopher Salas is live in D.C. with what comes next. Hi, Christopher.
Yeah, Lindsay, there are major questions regarding what comes next. How exactly is the United States going to temporarily run Venezuela, as the president says? And the president also said that now the country will manage Venezuela's massive oil reserves. There are also major questions about the legal authority regarding this move and the stability of the South American country after capturing and arresting its president. Video showing the moments during and after dramatic overnight U.S. military action that resulted in the capture of Venezuela's president.
Overwhelming American military power, air, land, and sea, was used to launch a spectacular assault.
Operation Absolute Resolve involved more than 150 aircraft launching from 20 different bases.
Not a single American service member was killed, and not a single piece of American equipment was lost.
The U.S. military put Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and his wife on the USS Iwo Jima. The two will face charges in New York. The Trump administration alleges Maduro leads a drug cartel,
which flooded our nation with lethal poison, responsible for the deaths of countless Americans.
The action marked the culmination of an escalating pressure campaign on the South American country, with months of strikes on alleged drug smuggling boats.
We are going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition.
President Trump also said the U.S. will tap Venezuela's vast oil reserves and sell large amounts abroad, while American oil companies help rebuild infrastructure.
This extremely successful operation should serve as warning to anyone who would threaten American sovereignty or endanger American lives.
Now, it's still unclear what the president means by running Venezuela, but he did not rule out boots on the ground, saying he wasn't afraid of such a move. Meanwhile, the country's vice president is calling for the release of Maduro, saying he's the rightful leader, potentially setting up a standoff here on what happens next in this country. Lindsay, back to you.
Christopher, thank you. Meanwhile, hundreds of thousands of Venezuelans have immigrated to the U.S. in the past 10 years, being forced to leave their home because of the political and economic turmoil there in Latin American country. Now, many of them celebrating after today's removal of the Venezuelan president. Nikita Ramos from our sister station in West Palm Beach has more on the reaction outside Mar-a-Lago.
You can really feel the split out here today. While some people say that this is a huge moment for Venezuela, other people on the other side, they say that this crosses the line for the United States.
Venezuelan Americans we spoke with say this feels like a turning point, described as a liberation and a moment of hope after years of corruption and authoritarian rule. Many say they believe this could finally open the door to rebuilding their country.
The last thing you lose is faith, and people have held on to the faith and hope that we were going to have a Venezuela that's free. It came today.
Trump supporters here are praising the move. They're calling it a strong and necessary response, and they say it sends a message against narco-terrorism in the region. But others strongly disagree. They're asking, why target Maduro when other world leaders accused of human rights abuses like Russia's Vladimir Putin and leaders in Central America haven't faced similar action? They say the U.S. should stay out of foreign conflicts, and they point to President Trump's own campaign promises about non-intervention and keeping the peace.
And stay with us as this continues to rapidly develop. We will be here bringing you all of the latest. Reporting near Mar-a-Lago, Nikita Ramos, back to you.
Vice President J.D. Vance was not at Mar-a-Lago as the operation unfolded. Sources say he watched from a secure video conference and then flew back to his home here in Cincinnati. The vice president releasing a statement about today's attack, saying that Maduro was offered several off-ramps to stop the drug trafficking, but became, quote, the newest person to find out that President Trump means what he says, end quote. He also thanked the special operators who pulled off a, quote, truly impressive operation. Now, elsewhere in Cincinnati, dozens gathered at City Hall to protest the Trump administration's actions in Venezuela.
U.S. intervention is never a good thing. War, bombs, killing civilians is never a good thing. If another country wants to change the way their government runs, it has nothing to do with the United States. The United States should not be putting boots on the ground in a foreign country and installing a government that will be favorable to them.
Protesters we spoke with say sovereignty in Venezuela is most important, but the U.S. should allow for the people in the country to take action. Our local lawmakers also commenting on today's attack in Venezuela. Earlier, I spoke with Democratic U.S. Congressman Greg Landsman. He tells us while the country should fight against drugs coming into the U.S., the actions taken in Venezuela are not the answer.
Most of the drugs come from China. They come from Southeast Asia. They come from Mexico. They come from Colombia. They don't come from Venezuela. So, it's very unnerving that he went ahead and did this without support from Congress or the American people. And now he's saying, I'm going to run the country, which is, again, going to be incredibly costly. And it puts American lives at risk.
Landsman adding that major oil companies will benefit from the U.S. taking control of Venezuela, making billions at the expense of American taxpayers and the people in that country. Other local lawmakers also commenting on the attacks. Northern Kentucky Republican Thomas Massie agreeing with Landsman, saying the actions taken by the Trump administration was not, quote, constitutionally sound. Meanwhile, the Republican senator from Ohio, Bernie Moreno, standing by Trump's actions tonight. Moreno, who was born in Latin America, saying the president, quote, eliminated an obvious, clear and present danger to our nation, adding that Trump has, quote, shown the world that he will defend and protect American lives. And we will continue to follow this breaking news. For the very latest on what is happening in Venezuela, you can head to our website, WLWT.com, or download our free mobile app and make sure you have notifications turned on.